Heart first leadership isn't what you say, it's how you show up, how you regulate, how you communicate, and how you execute when it matters most. We are Heidi and Ryan Sawyer, and you are listening to the Heart First Leadership Podcast.
Welcome back to the show. Today I have a very special guest for you to hear from, learn from. I'm excited to learn from. Man, we go back a little bit. Evan Cook. Do they still call you Cookie?
You know what? Some people do in some spaces. And
Yeah.
even funnier is working with kids. They always like, we're going to call you Cookie.
Are you still okay if we call you Cookie?
Yeah.
Okay, right on, man. So Evan Cook played football at Eastern, and I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit, right? Former player of mine that just have loved seeing your life unfold. That's one thing I do love about social media is being able just to observe the people that from your past and that you care about. So just excited to have you here, man. Thank you for being here.
Man, I'm excited to be here. This is cool. I love that you provide this platform. I love that you invited me to this platform. So I'm very grateful for that. And it's just kind of good. I love the message heart first. It resounds with me. It sticks with me. And I mean, as a player, you've known that's kind of how I've always led was with my heart. And so things like that. So yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, give us a screenshot so there's listeners out there who don't know who Cookie is, right? So tell us who Evan Cook. Like, give us just a great screenshot, kind of where you come from, what's got you to here,
Yeah.
where you are now in life. Yeah.
So I moved up to Washington State from Oklahoma, and it was after I had a brief stint in the juvenile justice system. And my mom, it's kind of like that Fresh Prince of Bel-Air story. So if I didn't have no Uncle Phil, I just had a brother and a sister-in-law and a bunch of kids I had to look after. So I moved up to Washington, started in Federal Way, started playing football there, and then got to Eastern, played football at Eastern, obviously for Coach Sawyer. And that was a very beautiful and challenging time in life, just going from a boy to a man. And then after football, I got into law enforcement a little bit. Didn't last long in that, that's a tough position to lead with your heart in. So after I transitioned from law enforcement, I got into public speaking. And this is where really, I would say my heart first kind of came into the play because there was a few situations I was going through in law enforcement where it's like, you know what, in a perfect world, I just wouldn't be doing this. I'd be doing something. I love the aspect of being able to relate to people, to coach people, to teach people, and to just kind of share my experiences and stories, and then also share about the law and things like that. And so I didn't like arresting people, and so I just kind of ran into a collision there. And then so I really just had to sit and ponder, like, well, what do I want to do? What am I good at? What are my gifts and talents? And so speaking was always one of them. Writing poetry was another, and I'll kind of get into that later. But public speaking was definitely one of them. And so I ended up moving back to my hometown or my Washington hometown, Federal Way, and started speaking in classrooms and to just kids. And, it was an AVID class, I want to say, that I first spoke to. And then there was other different classes I got invited to speak with kids and just share about my journey and share about leadership. And what I saw there was like, man, these kids need a lot more than just somebody to come in and babble on about how good they were and how good they got it now. And I just kind of didn't, it was fine. I felt like I had a story coming, being a college football player, winning a national championship. And so it was a compelling story, but it wasn't necessarily what they need. And so I shifted that public speaking platform to a mentoring one. And I started doing mentoring groups and programs for free in schools and high schools out in Federal Way. And, after that, it kind of transitioned me into law enforcement because they're like, man, you don't have to do this for free. I was going broke. I went broke. Kind of leading with my heart. I want to do what I felt I'm called to do. I felt like this is what God put me here to do. This is what I want to do. And so I just kind of dove in. I would say ignorantly because I didn't know how nonprofits worked. I didn't know how business worked. I didn't know how any of that worked. I just was determined to get in the classroom and get with students and teach. And so I would say I got taken advantage of, by organizations just more so capitalizing off the passion, capitalizing on my heart, saying, yeah, here, you can come speak to them. We don't have a check for you, but here you go. And I started seeing like, man, I'm pretty good at this. I'm making a big impact. Can I get some money? no.
We don't have any.
Yeah, we don't
Yeah.
have any. We don't have any for you anyway.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of ran into a lot of challenges with that, getting things off the ground. And I would be side by sides with programs who were getting paid to be there, who kids didn't really, like. They loved my program. They loved being with me. And so I just kind of had to like take a step back and figure out, how do I monetize this? How do I turn this into a career of mine and be able to take care of myself and my family? And so I ended up getting with a nonprofit, coaching football, and then just kind of created different ways to do everything that I want to do. So I just kind of split my time up between the football field, between classrooms, between spoken word, between everything. And I'd wake up at 4 a.m. and I'm not getting home until 9 p.m., 10 p.m., sometimes even later, and then ready to do it all over again. So I kind of dove into that, but I slowed down a lot when adversity struck. In 2018, I was working for a nonprofit, and I had dealt with a lot of loss, and I had lost like probably like my first kid when I was um, just starting out, and he was in my program, and he got murdered at a Taco Bell out here in Federal Way, and it kind of shook me up a little bit. It shook up the city. And it kind of left me as like, man, are you sure you want to do this?
Right.
Because there's a lot that comes with it. There's a lot of
Yeah.
emotion. There's a lot of trauma that comes with it. And so I just had to make sure that, I was sure. I had to kind of go back to my spirit and God and say, are you sure this is where you want me? Like I don't want to have to continue to deal with this. And so I just kind of persevered and stayed through it. And then more and more and more. And I think the biggest thing that kind of shook me up was when I lost a coworker. And I believe it was more stress induced. He had an asthma attack, and I believe it was more stress induced. We were under a lot of pressure. We were under a lot of scrutiny. We were under a lot of tension in the city and things. And we were trying our hardest to really mediate situations involving gun violence. We're doing our best to try and get kids, back on the right track. And we had lost a kid to suicide. And it was just like, man, we never dealt with that before. And so just doing all that, we kind of resorted back to our training and our principles of what it is we're trying to do. And then I lost him. And so I just kind of felt alone, didn't know what to really do. And so I was advised to take time off from work. And they're like, as long as you need. And I'm like, man, these kids need me, so I don't want to be going too long. So we kind of settled at 2 weeks. And so I went to this leadership conference, and um, I grabbed this journal, and it said, quiet the mind and the soul will speak. And I just felt that message, that's for me. Like, I'm here for that reason. And I opened that journal and I started writing and journaling, writing poetry and just writing my thoughts over the next what turned into be 2 years. It started off with 2 weeks where I would go and I would start at the leadership conference, and I would go to Friday Harbor to just sit by the water, to Montana and Glacier National Park, the Thousand Gardens of Buddha in Montana. And I just ended up places where I'm just like in Zen mode or whatever. And I just wrote, and it was very, very healing for me. And I kind of found, and that's why my book is called like My Journey to Self-Care. That's how I found kind of how do I take care of myself, and really offload some of what I'm going through. I hadn't really got into the therapy yet at that point in my life, so I didn't really feel like I had anybody to talk to. My practices were unhealthy, because like in that song Tennessee Whiskey, I'll bury my problems at the bottom of a bottle, and so I just kind of was dealing with it unhealthily, and ended up finding a good practice for myself through writing, and that led me back to grad school, where I got my master's in public policy and governance. And that just kind of led me to what I do now, which is, write, speak, help. And I kind of shifted back from mentoring, where I like to now train the people who are working with the youth, really to avoid some of the pitfalls that I fell in, to do practices better than I did, and to really help them go and make a meaningful impact in youth's lives, but while also keeping themselves safe from secondary trauma, from just the emotional baggage that comes with working with kids. Beautiful. And so it just kind of led me here, man. And I'm and that's a long story short of an introduction, but
Yeah, no, it's beautiful. It gives me all kinds of a lot of different directions I want to take this conversation. But thank you for sharing, first of all, and it makes me curious for a moment. Like if you were to identify, because we work in some of the same type of circles and different demographics in different areas, obviously, but I'm working with youth quite a bit, mainly in athletics, and there's what I would say is this to parents, to coaches, to anybody listening is whatever we have done up to this point is not working
mm-hmm.
clearly, right? If you look at mental health, you look at, everything, violence, whatever, all of it, right? Survey recently done that 80% in some circles and even 88% of collegiate athletes struggling with mental and emotional wellness, like raising their hand and acknowledging they need support or help.
Yeah.
That's a high number.
That's a huge number.
That's a huge number, right? And so from your perspective, I would love just to hear from you for a moment. Like, what is it that you see that is missing with the youth? And what is it you see that they need? What is this one thing that we can be like, yeah, that's something that we can maybe do or shift?
We are all leaders. If you're ready to stop waiting and start impacting your environment in a powerful way, we want to connect with you. Click the Book Now link in the show notes to book a call with a Heart First coach and discover what Heart First leadership can look like in your life and in your environment. Now back to the show.
I think it's education. I think what a lot of youth lack is the knowledge of themselves. And just speaking from a personal experience, and you can probably attest to this too, being a former athlete, so much of our identity gets wrapped up into that, and so there's no like who was Cookie outside of Eastern Washington jersey or Todd Beamer jersey, and having to answer that at 25 is depressing. Like that is, when it just suddenly ends and now you're just stuck with, all right, here's bills, here's taxes, here's life, and you have no knowledge of how to navigate that field, how to navigate yourself in those spaces, when so much of your identity has been wrapped up. And so I think it starts with getting them at a younger age, when they start athletics. So that athletics is a great tool. It's a great way to go see the world, great way to go get college paid for. It's a great way to socialize. Athletics is really great, but we have to educate our kids that they're more than just that.
Yeah.
And build themselves and build them an identity outside of their jersey.
Yeah.
And most of them don't want to, because they love that. They want to get wrapped up in that. And it's even harder nowadays because sports have kind of took a shift to more entertainment with social media, with NIL deals, and just I feel more of a pedestal we have put athletes on, but not more support that we've given them, especially for mental and emotional health.
Yeah.
I work with athletes as well. I have a program called More Than Athletes, and that's kind of what I try and do is just give them identity, help them find an identity, not give them, but help them find an identity outside of their uniforms. Yeah. And that's kind of one of the things that we harp on, and I'm sure, man, we can build on this for days.
Oh boy, yeah, you and I should definitely need to connect more offline because this piece of we become over-identified with our role, with our sport, and there's a lot that goes into why that's happening. But I completely 100% wholeheartedly agree with you that we have to help youth find their own sense of worth in something outside of the sport. Now, the sport is the athletics, competition. Competition in itself is primal. Like it's important, right? To learn how to compete, all those things. But when you become over-identified and your self-worth is wrapped up whether or not you win or lose the game, and now that you're in real life, you recognize that like winning in itself is damn near meaningless. But it's about the process and who you become and and the development of the skills and the tools. But yet, man, we get real wound up. And the first thing we ask our kids is, how'd you do?
Mm-hmm.
Rather than what'd you learn?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I mean, when you talk about, you know, seeing how you could have done things differently, like, trust me, from this perspective now versus who I was, you know, obviously now it's been over a decade, damn near a decade since I left coaching. And so when I was coaching you, that was what, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And yeah, I would do it different. Let's just say I'd do it different. I mean, I'm not saying less passion,
Right.
not less passion, but definitely different, you know, coming from a different place. So
Yeah.
to see that whole, so what is one way that you help them do that? What is one way that you help youth find an identity that's outside of the jersey?
Writing.
Mm-hmm.
Writing is probably one of my top ways, because when you just give them, you know, my prompt is always, you know, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Mm-hmm.
If life just was perfect tomorrow, what do you want to be when you grow up? And then I'll shift it and say, you can't be an athlete. If sports didn't exist, what do you want to be when you grow up? And it challenges them to think, and they write it out and they write it out. And, you know, the answer that I love the most is, I don't know.
Right. Beautiful. Now explore.
Now
Yeah. Good.
explore. Let's
Yeah.
go into, okay, then what are you passionate about? What are you gifted at? What are your raw skills and talents that you can just jot down on paper? Oh, I'm good at math. I'm good at science. I'm good at this. I'm good at that. All right, let's pair this over here with, all right, what are you stronger at? What can you do the best, the easiest? And all right, I can easily just go solve a Rubik's cube. Like, all right,
Whatever it is.
yeah, you're a different type of thinker, you know, and then you just kind of shift that energy all the way down to, these are the fields that more align with who you are.
Mm.
Not aside from what you like to do and what society has told you need to go do to be rich, you know, but this more aligns with who you are. And it may be a mathematician, it may be an actor, it may be a politician, it may be a police officer. It's gonna be something though other than a uniform, and they just need to be able to see that, and so they can conceive that possibility of, damn, I am more than just this uniform. I have other things I can do, and then I try and take them. Okay, now what are our tools? What do we have to get to where we want to go? Now sports just became a tool. Instead of my life, it just became a tool.
Vehicle. Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
now I can just drive the vehicle as far as it can go, but I know this vehicle doesn't define me. And
Yeah.
so, you know, I've worked with some kids, you know, some athletes that, you know, and they're all ages now, because some have recently graduated college, um, some about to go on and play in the NFL, and then some are still in high school, which I kind of love the most. You know, I've kind of started and stopped this program a lot. And I kind of just revamped it up like the last couple of years, of just really getting interpersonal with a few kids. I think my limitations only had me only working with like 3 to 5 kids. And that's kind of how I liked it the most, was instead of this room of 30, let me
Sure.
just scale it all the way back to like a 3 to 5, where I know I
Yeah.
can go put their finger on and say, all right, these
Well,
guys
make a
success.
depth of make a depth of impact rather than a width of impact.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, there's a study that came out recently that every single person, even if they don't try to, will influence 80,000.
Mm.
Right. So think about, like, that's a stadium full of people, right? That that will come in contact and influence in one way, shape, or form. So if that person is impacted by you at their depth, at their core, right? It may be 80, but it may be exponentially larger than that if they seek to impact others, right? Then
Mm-hmm.
now it becomes hundreds of thousands, millions,
Mm-hmm.
tens of millions, hundreds of millions, right? That one person has the opportunity to go impact and come in contact with, and what's the ripple effect of that, right? Well, one of the things I've been recently, and it came from one of my coaching groups. I'm actually working with a player right now out at Eastern in one of my coaching groups,
Nice.
and he's done a lot of work. He's done a lot of personal development work, and he said something beautiful the other day. He said we should wrap up our identity in our intentions,
Mm.
rather than which is really highlighting this idea that it's about the process, not the outcome,
Mm-hmm.
right? and it's about who you become. Like, and so even like what I hear you saying is really going even beyond the specific role of police officer or lawyer or whatever that, they end up choosing down the road, but really getting clear about who they are as a core, right? And who they want to become as a core, right? Like, hey, I want to be a patient, passionate, consistent, whatever these things are. Like, these are my intentions to show up. What kind of teammate am I going to show up as today? Because that's the greatest gift that I'm going to be able to take away from that experience, win or lose. I mean, I can only tell you a handful of games I even remember the score or what the game, like, yeah, maybe the national championship game, right? But you don't remember all the games. You don't remember, but you remember the relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And if they molded you into becoming something that you weren't before, like, that's the point, right? I love that intention piece. Yeah, man. So for you, what is it that helps you stay centered in this? Because it sounds like you really leaned into the unknown, man. You really been doing this, and like, it's super inspiring to hear, because as somebody who, I coach for a living, right? I coach, I mentor. And a lot of times it's always that very struggle. Like, yeah, would you come talk to my team? And then I do a handful of things for free, but it's like, yeah, but when is it going to turn into something that I could feed my family with, right? And like that piece. So like, to lean into that and say, what has kept you leading with your heart all these years since that transition? Because now it's been what, 5-6 years at least, right? 6 years,
Almost 10.
Yeah. Oh, since you've made that shift, yeah.
Okay. Almost 10 years. I got back out here in 2015. And so, yeah, it's almost been 10 years.
That's about the same. We both transitioned about the same time then.
Yeah. God works in mysterious ways.
Yeah, right.
But I would say since that transition, I think what has always centered me is I've always had and came from a religious background. And I would say it shifted into a more spiritual background, which was a little bit difficult of a transition because I was so mad at religion that I forgot the principles of them.
Sure.
And the good things that I was able to take from them, and the things that grounded me when I was sick of you being on my ass.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah, it was great. But those things, I had then it was Jesus, it was Christ. And, I kind of shifted my consciousness towards more of a relationship with the universe, and the different pieces that come with all of the religious teachings or the philosophical doctrines, and I kind of just found my own way. And I just remember being connected to that and centering myself on purpose. Why are you here? Why are you here? You're here for a reason. So when it gets hard, and it still gets hard, I just recenter myself on why are you here? And the Most High, the Creator, God, whatever somebody wants to say for that higher source, they didn't bring me here for no reason. And I know that with the faith in that higher source, with the faith in God, with the faith in who I call on, I say my ancestors, my spiritual guides, the Most High, with that faith, I'm able to then persevere because I know that the universe is going to provide for me one way or another. And if I hold true to that, then what's outside is easy. Going and just walking and just showing up and doing it, it's easy. And it's happened over and over again where I've been lost and clueless or dead broke. And it's like, nah, but you got to go do this speaking engagement. And no, they're not going to pay you no money. But here's this $25,000 contract that's going to help you, come out of nowhere to go and teach about community safety. Like here's this little side gig that you can use to supplement your income, things like that. So just being true to what it is that I'm here for, because I really believe that, what I'm doing isn't necessarily, it wasn't my choice. You know what I'm saying? Even though I made the decision to go and do it, but I made the decision to listen to the calling I was given. I feel like this is my duty. This is my obligation. I feel like when I attach words like that to it, it means a little bit more in getting it done.
Sure.
It means a little bit more with staying patient in the hard times and staying true in the hard times when kids are dying, you dead broke, and you're wondering what the hell am I doing? I could be making 100 and something thousand dollars doing a million and two other things and living a better life, traveling the world, seeing this, seeing that. But it's like, what are you here for?
Yeah, but not a more meaningful life, right? Maybe
Exactly.
a more comfortable, right?
Yeah, definitely more comfortable.
I think you just hit it on the head when we go back to like the identity piece, right? And this is something I actually told my wife this morning. I said, "What am I going to say this out loud?" Is I believe some of our over identification with sports, even with being fans of certain sporting teams, is a lack of meaning in our life because
Mhm.
we're just kind of if the Super Bowl was the best part of your week, you need to look in the mirror. That's all I'm going to say.
Seriously.
You know,
Seriously.
if that was the thing that you were more excited about that week than anything was some nachos
Couple hot dogs.
and your friend's dip that they were going to bring over that had queso in it. And I mean, come on, right? That is tells me, and I'm just going to say this out loud. I mean, people might not like hearing this. Your life lacks meaning,
Hmm.
right? And when I hear this from you, I'm saying this as an encouragement. I'm saying this as an inspiration that you're giving me is to pursue meaning in life, and everything else seems to work out exactly how it's supposed to, and probably potentially better than you could have imagined, and to stay on that path of meaning rather than that's heart first.
Well, it's kind of what you were saying to, we're not worrying about the outcome, but worrying about the process. A
Yeah.
lot of times people worry about the outcome. I want to go be a millionaire instead of I want to go change people's lives. I did a book um, panel the other day.
Mm.
And the one of the main questions that the kids always had was, how much money have you made selling your book? And is this why you selling books? And it's like, no, like that's not. For me, it's about expression. It's about finding a positive and healthy way to express myself and being able to share that with them so they can see like not everything's about money. I know school and institutions and just capitalistic society puts a monetary value on everything that we do. And so it makes it hard to really go and lead with your heart,
Yeah.
because a lot of people
Yeah.
are thinking with their mind and thinking with their bank account.
Yep.
And rightfully so. I mean, shit, this is tough economic times that we're living in now. However, when you're able to focus on the journey, the process, I believe that all of those questions become answered, if not immediately, over time,
Yep.
that those questions become answered. I never seen myself sitting in a house, 9 years ago when I started this. I knew I would be in one though. I never saw it. All I saw was get up every day and go impact these kids' lives. Get up every day and go impact these kids' lives. And pivot when you have to make the necessary changes that go with your growth. Like going back to grad school was probably one of the greatest things that ever happened to me because I hated undergrad. I wasn't a good student. I got caught cheating, and I just kind of like took that 5 years of free college for granted.
Mm.
And when I could have been there learning about myself, doing more things, like I have a passion for music, and there was a whole free studio on campus, and I only recorded 2 songs ever.
Mm.
There was things I could have took advantage of that I didn't. And then when I got to a certain mindset in my life, and I'm like, oh, I need more skills to go do and make the impact that I want to. I got to be able to go stand in other rooms. I got to be able to go have different conversations with lawmakers and policymakers, and I better be able to pull my weight. And so let me go get different tools and skills. I mean,
Yep.
and now when I'm talking to a city councilman and they're like, oh, what's your degree in? And it's public policy, they look at me different because they're like, oh, because when we're talking about youth, like you're not going to just go be on the street level and change poverty and systematic oppression there. It's going to start in Washington State in Olympia. It's going
Yeah.
to start in our mayor's office. It's going to start in getting around the people and to the people and becoming those people who have the power to make those laws, who have the power to implement those laws and execute such policies that we are affected by our everyday life.
Mm. Yeah. I love it. Yeah. I can see your passion. I can feel your passion. So talk to me about. I pulled something out here earlier that you're saying, and I want to go back to because I want to give you a chance to talk about your book for a moment. First of all, congrats on
Thank you.
writing. I'm writing my second one right now. I've written the manuscript and it's been sitting on my desk for about 3 months because I'm afraid of going back into it because I know what happens when you do it is you can't pull yourself back out because all you think about is like, oh, what about, I'm gonna change that word. And no, oh, that doesn't fit. And I gotta add on that and I gotta go research this and I gotta, you know what I mean? It's like, it's a painstaking thing. But so you said quiet the mind and the soul will speak. Obviously that was something that was an impression upon you that led to your book, I'm assuming. Yeah. And
Mhm.
so tell me about your book a little bit.
Okay, before I do, I would say congratulations on your first book. I never did congratulations on it. We haven't talked about it, but I have read it.
Oh, did you? Yeah.
Yeah, I did, and I thought it was super impactful. And I thought, and I just appreciated your vulnerability
Yeah, well,
of just sharing your experiences
yeah,
and transition from coaching. So, thank you for that. I actually really
yeah,
enjoyed that book. It's
I
sitting on
appreciate
my shelf. Um, but what kind of led to mine was, I had that journal and I filled it up. And like I said, it started off as like this 2 week thing that I'm gonna do that turned into this 3 year thing that I did. It might have been more than 3 years because I started writing in that in 2018 and I probably stopped in 2021, whatever. So yeah, that's 3 years. But
it.
and so it was just sitting there, the last couple years, and I would always go back to it. If I had a performance to say what poem could I go use to perform, what video could I make with a poem from there, and then it just got to, man, I just want to read every part of the book. I want to read every poem. I want to read it, and then it was like, well, are you just going to leave it here? Like, are you just going to like sit on it? And I'm like, I can't, and that's how I feel with the works that we do as creatives is we can leave it for our kids or we can share it with the world and see how big of an impact it can have. And
Mm,
so I knew like these poems are powerful. Some dark, some gloomy, some with some extra stuff on them, but they're powerful. And I only knew because I would go perform them and people were like, "Oh, wow, that's great." And I had read different poetry books myself, but I want to make not just a book of poems, but I want to tell about my experience and how I got here. And so once I wrote that out, and I was just like, well, I got to publish this now. And what really led to me publishing was I had did a fast from weed. I felt like I was getting too addicted and stuck in that. And I wasn't being as productive. I was being productive from a creative standpoint, but not from an execution standpoint.
sure.
And so I had took a fast and, you know, it just changed my life. Like it was the most productive 6 months I probably had the last 10 years. And one of the goals in that, I had written out goals, and one of my goals was to publish that book. And so was to publish a book. It wasn't even necessarily that one or How My Soul Speaks. It was to publish a book because I have like, hey, I'm working on one right now that I started writing when I left law enforcement and got to chapter 6 and just stopped.
Mm.
And I haven't touched that book in the last like 6 to 8 years. And it's just been sitting there. And I'm like, all right, well, I need to freshen this one up. So I wanted to go, let me attack the low hanging fruit. What book can I publish that would be easy to come out, but still a good book that I'd be proud to go speak of? Because I wrote my first book. It was a children's book, but I really didn't like it as much as I thought I would. Um, and maybe that's just because like fiction and fantasy isn't really my style.
Sure.
you know, it's more so getting to the root, getting to the heart of problems and things like that, telling my life and my story. And so I didn't like that project. And I was like, all right, which one can I? And I had seen that notebook that I had. And I'm like, all right, let me type up an introduction. Let me type up my journey to self-care. And then let me transcribe all of these poems in here. And took me about 3 to 4 months. And next thing you know, I was like, all right, what would be the title? And I thought back to that saying, quiet the mind and the soul will speak. Well, this is how my soul speaks. And I said that, and I was just like, oh shit, there
There
goes
it
the
is. There it is.
title.
There it is. Yeah. 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 It's
And
funny.
so,
You think you start writing a book, you think you have the title, and then you finish writing the book and the title changes. That's how
mm.
my book. Yeah. So that's beautiful, man. Well, it's congratulations on leading with your heart, stay in the path. Like it's super inspirational. And it's someone has to do it, right?
Yeah,
Someone has to do it. It's what the world needs, man. The world needs people who are taking a path that's not traveled.
Mm-hmm.
If we're going to create something new and different, we have to be willing to walk down paths that no one's walking down, and we have to be willing to leave the crowd and not walk with the crowd. And then that's just, too many people are just staying in line, walking with the crowd and doing what everybody else is doing, chasing the next shiny thing. So,
To me, it's on the knowers. It's on the people who know. And, it's our duty and obligation to, as human beings, to make sure that the generations that it's why we're here. It's our biological purpose is to share and pass down knowledge so that our children and our children's children who are coming up can sustain this planet, can sustain humanity. And so I feel like, when we see this, when we see it in the spot that it is, it's on all of us to grab somebody and bring them along. And whether that starts in the household, which is where I believe it starts. I believe it starts at
sure.
home first.
Starts at
Starts in the
home.
mirror, starts in the household, and then you kind of spread that out into the community. Because I just always use the analogy of I can't go clean up somebody else's room if my room's in here looking like shit. Because as soon as somebody come into my house, they're gonna be like, bro, you done told them to stack shelves and all of this and all your shit all over the floor. So I believe in cleaning up the home first and cleaning up yourself first and then being able to go out. And it can even be a simultaneous process. It's just more about the transparency of, hey, this is what I'm doing. This is what we need to do as humanity to get into a space where all of our kids can feel safe, all of our kids can be productive, all of our kids can inherit an earth that is prosperous for them and not ridiculed by war and poverty and the things that we see of today. And so
Right.
I just believe it's on the knowers. It's on those who have the ability to go out and teach. And, one thing I appreciate about what you continue to do is, my biggest compliment to you is always your ability to teach. I learned a lot from you in terms of X's and O's, how I coach football. I only believe like you can only coach two levels and levels that you were coached at
Mhm.
and continue to learn at. And so the level of education that you was able to provide me with around the game of football and how to attack the game of football, the process of doing things, I feel like has helped me become a better coach. And that's my, what I'm saying? And that's my aspiration as a coach. What I'm saying is to go be a great teacher, and I got a different style than you had. but but
Good.
impactful. And sometimes you got to do what you got to do to get it out of them. And I had my best scrimmage after you gave me the worst words. So it just kind of it's just kind of about I always believe how we package the message, but sometimes you got to just you got to let people know,
Yeah.
and in the best way you know how. And I think what's commendable about how you do it now is you can look back and say, I would do it differently. There are different things, there are different words I would choose. There are different things that I would do, but one thing that I believe most of us as young adults were able to do, at least I hope, and I hope more so now in our space as adults, is be able to, eat the chicken and spit out the bone. You
Mm,
know, I never believed that there were bad intentions. I never believed that our best interest wasn't at heart.
right.
I just believe that you always wanted and other coaches always wanted us to be at our best selves. And not everybody always know how to get somebody to their best self. But if
Right.
you're giving an honest effort, I can't knock you too hard.
Right.
I can probably have a lot more grace for you than somebody who does know how and chooses not to.
Yeah.
Whatever. So yeah,
So,
I just appreciate you having me here, coach.
yeah, well, this is fun. It's beautiful to have this conversation with you and reconnect with you, man. Seeing you grow, seeing your growth, like I said, from the outside, but just even just hearing you speak, man. I can just tell that you're doing the work and that you're becoming somebody that I'm proud of you. You know what I'm saying, and you should be proud of what you have accomplished and the path that you're on. So my last kind of question is if you were to be able to give yourself advice at a younger age. First of all, what age does your mind immediately go to?
It
What age?
always goes to 14.
14.
It
Okay.
always goes to 14.
That's an age, man. That's about I was 14. Mine would be probably closer to 15 or 16, personally. But what would you tell that 14-year-old Evan?
Leave them girls alone. Leave them girls alone. Stay
Especially at
focused.
that age, man. This at that age, huh?
But I think I would say the message for my 14-year-old self, my 18-year-old self would be the same. Would be to focus and give it your all. Go as hard as you can at becoming who you are and doing the best in what you have. life will be, and we always grow up and be like, man, I should, could, woulda. And, I always think of the Nick Edwards story. I always think of his story, and his story is one I would tell my younger self. Is It's about your work ethic, man. It's about how hard you go at the things you want to do. And if that's make it to the NFL, if that's be the top kid in your science class, like Nick Saban always says, the process is the same. You're going to go through it. There's only one way to it, and it's making certain sacrifices, like staying away from girls and staying focused on your books. Read books, get in the classroom. I would give myself a long speech.
Yeah, develop your mind. Develop your mind. Yep, develop that mind. Yeah.
And that'll help you, utilize your tool, your gift of hitting people and hand fighting, but develop your mind, develop your body, and develop your spirit. Everything else will take care of itself. But most importantly, young Cookie, leave them girls alone.
So you can have the energy and the time to develop your mind and your body, spirit, right?
Energy and time, crucial.
That's it, brother. Yeah. Well, where can people find you if they're looking to kind of see what you have going on, man, or find your book? Yeah.
Make a trip to Federal Way. But you can find my book. I sell it from my website, evancook.com. The E is a 3, so it's 3vancook.com. And I sell my book right there. It'll get to you from the time you place an order, then the week. So that's where you can find me. I'm always in Federal Way. You can invite me out on my website. There's a contact page where I can be booked for services, where I can be booked for public speaking. Instagram is Coach Cook 56, and I'm super easy to find. I'm always in Federal Way. Mostly at the house. I just had a son. So
oh, well, congratulations. I didn't know that.
Man, yeah. Thank you.
How old is he?
4 months, almost 5 months.
What's his name?
Kai.
Beautiful. That's my nephew's name. Kai.
Really?
Yeah.
That's right.
It's beautiful. Awesome. Well, thank you, Cookie, so much. Appreciate you. Proud of you, man. And keep doing everything that you're doing to stay on the path, brother.
Thank you, Coach. I appreciate you, and I'm proud of you as well. This is a beautiful space that you've created, and I just enjoy watching, you transform your life as well, but still keep that same passion.
I appreciate you, brother. We'll stay in touch.
All right, Coach.
Thank you for listening. Remember, leaders go first, alignment matters, and the environment that you create is the legacy you'll leave. We'll see you on the next episode.